I hope I tried to make it transferable. That's your question. Because, yeah. And my hope was that you would see how that works beyond the teaching, because it's applicable. So were you here the other week when we handed out, in fact, I was just looking at it, and I want to get to it at some point, but I don't mind getting to it right now. When we handed out this piece here about the spiritual stages, did you get that? All right. So in the spiritual stages, there's also a thing called the spiritual need that's applicable to the stage. For instance, if someone is spiritually dead, you know, and that is they unbelieving and they rebellious, ain't no need of trying to pump them up with no Bible. Amen. Ain't no need of trying to pull no spiritual gift out on them. You know, because what they need, if you look at it, do you have it? I do. Yeah, look at it. Everybody look with her, because she raises a question that probably some others are asking. Yeah. And your name again? Michelle. And those your children? Yes. Beautiful. Hey there, what's up? You all right there, man? Good, good. You see it? So but again, one of the key things to all of this, you know, is we gotta be listeners, and you listen to what dominates a person's talk, how they talk, because what they say gonna reveal where they are. You know, you can't read folk mind, but you can listen to them. And what they say will reveal where they are. So if say, for instance, someone is spiritually dead, you're not trying to give them no ministry. Huh? You go to their need, and their need is to be in a secure relationship with a mature believer. Do you see that? Right. You know, that's their need. Not necessarily, they don't necessarily need you to teach them the Bible. They kind of need to see the Bible in you. So they need to be in a relationship. It's about a relationship with someone who's mature enough, but also who, if they do raise questions, they're mature enough to have an adequate answer, or if not have an adequate answer, go to somebody that has one. You got to be mature enough, and also one part of being mature is to be honest. Know what you don't know. Yeah, yeah, you know, but church folk be faking so often, you know. You know, they think just because they've been in the church a number of years that they know something. A lot of them don't know anything, because they just been in the church, and ain't no church in them, you know. And so know what you don't know, and then go to someone who knows, so you might can answer. That's on that level. And then if they are on the other level, say for instance, good. All right. Well, let me move on. All right. Yeah. I think I'm going there. Were you here the first night? Huh? I'm gonna end where I started, and this is with what I call the witness circle, huh? You know, and what I hold, what people believe is gonna show up in their behavior. Amen. What people believe is gonna show up in their behavior. Because a lot of times what we believe, you know, and it's also evidence of what folk believe, whether it's a stated belief or our challenge is to make sure what you believe is real. Amen. You know, because there's a whole lot of folk, you know, got some unreal understanding of the Christian faith, and we ain't the first crowd to get that. In fact, that's why you got the New Testament. Because people were operating from belief systems that were not real. And it was showing up in some behavior that was impacting how they belong. For instance, there were some people, you know, that you find, as Paul writes to, that they thought that if you were a Christian, well, you need to also be a good Jew. That's what the whole book of Galatians is about. Amen. You know, that's what that whole book is about. You know, you need to act like that in the way. of how they belong. You know, and they was trying to impose that belief system. They're trying to impose that belief system up on people who came from another place, perspective. You never seen folk who can fantasize more like than church folk. And baby, your daughter? Sierra. See, how old are you, Sierra? 14. All right. And so, for instance, you know, Sierra shows you some behavior, which I know she never does, that is not responsible. We then gives her a chance, you know, to think about her beliefs rather than punishing her for her behavior. I'm not making any sense. I just saved her from a whipping. I just blessed her life. With children, I'm just using a good example because I work with children. And we focus on their behavior rather than what's going on in their head. And then we tend to respond to their behavior. And in the process, we getting in the way of our relationship with them on how they belong. Because what are they going to say? You just don't understand where I'm coming from. They're correct. You are not, you know. So the behavior needs to be responsible, but also how you belong, it needs to be right. You know, right, that type of stuff. But I'm talking about how somebody else belongs. Church folk are good at that. Real good at that. Thinking, you know, that people need to belong a certain way. No, I can belong the Bernstein way, and you belong your way. Huh? As long as my way don't get in your way. Huh? And vice versa. Am I making any sense, y'all? Yeah. You know, so it's an interesting piece, but there's a chapter in there about, you know, just because you join church, you in church don't mean you in heaven. In the church, we think we ought to see something different than what we see in the world. In some sense, yes, but you're going to see the same folk. Amen. You know, just because you walked out of your house into the church house don't mean you've been transformed. You know, you was mean in the house, you're going to be mean in church. Talk to me, somebody. It just shows up in church. Don't be alarmed. There is no perfect church just because you in church. And we tend to put that on oh, you in church now. So what? You know, you know, because who we are, that's who we are, right? You know, there is no perfect church. And if it is, if you in it, that just made it imperfect. You know? Yeah, and so, you know, it's very, you know, so we need to quit looking for a perfect church because you ain't going to find one. And the day you walk in it, that's when it's going to become imperfect. Amen. Mm-hmm. Is that all right with y'all? Yeah. So I thought that's where we better go back. You know, have any of y'all had time to think about this since we presented it? This whole, you know, belief, behavior, belong. I mean, we can go somewhere with that. You know, I love working with it, because it's like a self-assessment tool. Gives you a chance to assess what, you know, if my belonging, if there got to be something about my behavior that's affecting my belonging. I'm gonna meet with a classmate of mine, and we've been knowing one another for almost 40 years. But we ain't never been close. We've been cordial. You know, we've been cordial. And when my mother died, he's one of the first persons to call me. You know, but we never really been close. I don't know why. You know, we even related in some kind of way. But I'm gonna have breakfast with him, and I want to know, what is it about me that just really didn't make us get very close? What is it about my behavior? I want to know that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because perhaps what he's probably believed something about me probably ain't been right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, I just love to work this. I like to work it in any situation. Sierra, she got it. Next time y'all come at her, she gonna say, "Wait a minute, Mom. Let's work this circle out. Before you pull out that belt, let's work this out. All right, good. All right. So let's move on. I want to go. Here's a consideration. If you were to lead a church, what difference would it make? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, really make. Even ought to make some difference. Let me go into the acts of ain't no lot of time. The most fertile arena for making disciples is not outside the church. If Bethlehem, if the members of Bethlehem are all spiritually infants, why should I be going out there getting some more infants? Unless I just want to be have a child care center. Really? Where should my work be? Right there inside. You know, and we always trying to bring in new folk, but we ain't developing the folk we have. Infants. Yeah. So go is not always leaving and going, being on the move. It's being engaged. And so this whole thing is being personally involved in the activity of disciple making. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be involved in community, but why don't we get personally engaged in this whole process of disciple making in the church? All right. So then the other piece is make. Make has to do with transformation. Go is engagement, make is transformation. And that is where you too, where I'm being personally changed while I'm in the activity of making disciples. I'm not just in the process of someone else's transformation, but I'm also being transformed. I've been transformed being with you all here these past weeks. You know, this has helped me as much as it's helped you all. So it's being personally changed while in the process or in the activity of making disciples. It's a point of identification. You know, saying I am personally identifying with those who identify with the Christian faith. That's what it's all about. You know, we may understand ourselves. We just heard it. You know, right. So baptizing. Baptize and then teach. Teach is about empowerment. That's really what teaching is about. It's about empowerment. When we're teaching, we're trying to empower people. And I remember I grew up, I spent a lot of time in my early years. Victoria can testify. I spent a lot of time around Muslims. And I probably would have became a Muslim, but I just couldn't wrap my head around or get courage enough to walk into my daddy's house and say, Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, because I know daddy wasn't going to say wa alaikum salam. Daddy was going to give me that look. But I grew up a lot with one of the things that and I learned a lot from the Muslim brothers. And one of the things that they taught me, there's a difference between being taught and trained. You know, when you teach people, you empower people. When you're training people, you're controlling them. You train dogs. Sit, stay. You know, are y'all with me? It's about controlling people. Yeah. And there's a whole lot of this didactic method that takes place in America. It ain't teaching. It's not empowering people. It's training people to control people. I'm going to give you one instance. What's the first thing, Sarah, you do at school? The first thing they do? No, the first activity at school. What school you attend?
I started Skyline.
Skyline. Oh, really?
Good.
But what's the first thing? That's a public school. What's the first thing they do? Huh? We pledge allegiance. They don't do that anymore?
No, they take it out.
The last time I was on the campus wasn't too long ago. That's the first thing they did. It came across the speaker.
So was that football?
No, this was at school. This was a middle school. It came across the speaker. And the kids, some stopped, some didn't. But when I grew up, well, maybe I'm old. When I grew up, the first thing we did was what? Pledge. You know, it ain't that many words. You probably learned it the first day. Huh? So, but from that point on, that's about training. You know, it's you know, it may be a little, it's a part of the process of colonialization, where they colonize your mind. It's training, it's about control. So now you got a whole lot of up talking about when people take the knee, that they desecrating the flag. They ain't desecrating no flag. They ain't thinking about the flag. They try so many trained people
Black folks
versus empowered people. Yeah. Am I making any sense here? Yeah. All right. Yes, sir.
In the Old Testament, when it says train up a child in the way he should go, is that a misuse of the word train right there? Or?
Oh, yeah, you need to understand what they're saying when they say train. Because, again, if you really going to spend some time in the Bible, I don't care where you land, and that's in the Bible. So the training, if it is a training, it was a training for resistance against oppressive powers, etc. You know, it's always about resistance. You know, and I got a piece coming out. See, we use the Ten Commandments. We try to use them in ways that are control people, but they really are very revolutionary. You know, just think about the very first one. Thou shalt have what? No other God. Y'all think about that. Particularly when you're living among people who got gods and, you know, and God's propping up everywhere, and then they are gods that perpetuate oppression. And then all of a sudden you saying you shall have no, think about it, that's very, very radical. Yeah. So if you're going to use that text, try to understand that. All right? Okay? Moving on. 8 laws. I borrowed this from Rick Warren. I know Rick Warren. I admire Rick Warren. I don't necessarily think black people should have bought all into that purpose-driven life stuff that they did, you know, because that he didn't have black life in mind. Although he's done an amazing lot of, he made a ton of money, and he emptied a lot of that money into Africa to help villages and bring hospitals and stuff. Admirable, you know. But I like what he does, the 8 laws of spiritual growth, and I'm called it, disciple making. The first spiritual law is got to be intentional. People do not become disciples by happenstance. Jesus was very intentional, huh? He went where folk was and said, "Come, follow me." Huh? Very intentional. Follow who? Me. Follow who? Don't be following nobody. Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. Be very intentional. Got to be intentional, but it also needs to be incremental. You take people in steps. It's in increments. You know, I've watched folk join church one Sunday, you know, and be up there on the deacon board the next. That, you know, I was in a revival one night. Right here in Oakland, I was in a revival one night. The guy joined the church that Sunday, and he's up counting the money during the revival. You don't know where this dude come from. And you got him counting church money. Needless to say, the last time I went there, he wasn't even there. Yeah, because she could, you could, yeah, I didn't ask for yeah, so it has to be incremental, in stages, huh? Then spiritual growth is personal. You know, everyone grows at their own pace. You know, and then there's the other thing, some get it, some don't. You know, I used to hear people, you know, talking about, oh, I've been around here a long time. Apparently God wants to do something with me. Yeah, he probably do, because he's been having a hard time all these many years. You know, everybody grow at their own pace. Personal. Then it ought to be really, really smart. you know, and he was highly driven. A lot of his stuff is very, very good, but not too. But a lot of stuff ain't practical, you know. And there's a whole lot of stuff that we be doing in church. It ain't practical. Spiritual growth ought to be relational. Always about engaging in relationships. It ought to be relational. All right. Here come the great late Zach Carey. Great and late. All right. We give him some love. All right. And then spiritual growth is multidimensional. You know, when you follow Jesus, you know, there's a whole lot of different things that Jesus does toward making disciples. He ain't always walking on the water, you know, feeding 5,000. You know, he's not always healing blind. You know, he did that, but he also, you know, brought his ministry into helping people to hear. So it was multidimensional. Then spiritual growth is also, it's seasonal. You know, it's like season, you know, with things, you know, everybody have their season. You know, so it's seasonal, but then the other thing, it's incarnational. What I mean, it ought to become real. It ought to be, he says, it ought to become flesh. It ought to become real. Is that, y'all got that? Any question about that? Because I'm getting ready to shift and get to where I think I'm supposed to be tonight. Y'all got that? Yes. Any questions about it? Finish. I'd rather get through than get finished. All right. Yeah. Yeah, but it has to do how something becomes human. How do you make it real in the human life? There's a John 1:14 says this, and the Word became flesh. John 1:14. It's a statement of incarnate. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. One said, and he pitched a tent and lived in our neighborhood. Yeah, so it's about how does the Christian faith, or what it is you believe about the faith, become real in your life? How does it show up? How do you live it out? Is that, you getting it? I got it. I want to go into something. Let me see if I can get to it. The disciple, we talked about this last week. Got intentional leadership, relation results. It was, you know, my predecessor. I follow Reverend Dr. Abraham Henry Newman. He was at the Bethlehem Church for 40 years, or a little better. And I believe that we can learn something. One of the mistakes of a whole lot of young preachers, they walk in the church and go to kicking over wheelchairs and stomping on tombstones. You know, not acknowledging that there was some folk came before you. Amen. You know, this church is here because some folk came before you. You know, got to acknowledge that because before us, Dr. Newman and his spirit, because I had it hand me the bishopship, new engine, and drove it all the way there. And he said, told me to hold on to it. Well, when the bill got to be about $116, I got nervous. I said, that's way too much money. So I sent him his card back. I said, I'll make it from here. You know, but I honor him, but I honor him because I listened to him. And one of the things he had was a passion for Christian education. And his passion for Christian education was, you know, and I want to honor him by providing a systematic approach to this mandate of making disciples. This is one of the things, this is where I'm going, is that most of our churches, we don't have no curriculum. You know, and we don't have no systematic approach to making disciples. You know, people don't ever know what level they on. Everybody's staying in the kindergarten. You know, we got folk been in the Christian kindergarten all their life because churches don't have no system. You know, we used to have in Sunday school, we used to have the primary class, beginners, primary, juniors, intermediate. Then we had adults, and then you had nothing else after adult. People just get there and that's where they stay. Huh? Some of y'all remember. So, Bethlehem Missionary Baptist Church, BMBC, and as well as others, for Nathaniel Fanal, and he was very charismatic. And, you know, for Fanal, it was about how you can get folk to shout. You know, every service right there, she was a member of the church. She joined, she's the only living charter member. She's 92. Gonna be in August, she got another birthday coming up. She's still having birthdays past 90. Say amen. Amen. And yeah, celebrate that. And she endeared herself to the pastors, and this is how she did it. Fanal was her spiritual father. Dr. Newman was her spiritual brother. I'm her pastor's son. Say amen, y'all. Amen. And then by the spiritual intensity, well, that Newman came in a little more reserved. You know, he didn't want to kill the spirit, but he said, you know, and we heard him say that for years. You know, he said, yeah, we got all that, but it takes the first black church in Richmond. You know, I was trying to find classrooms in this church. Where are they, Pastor?
Upstairs.
You got two of us. They just want, you know, one, they was out of that South, out of the you know, from the withering heat of Jim Crow, you know, and they was glad about it. You know, and then they was making more money than they ever made in their life. And they wanted to come to church and shut down. And he said, I mean, he said that till the day he died. Then I came along and added to the mantra, but also transformation. If you're going to be inspired, you're going to be right. Yeah. All right. So I came up with this little model, and I use it, and I call it, y'all read that a little more like that's the Bible. Y'all read that like your horoscope. All right. Yeah, that's the Bible. Let's read that right. Then, come on, help them, Sierra. Then, so the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Amen. Y'all act different in this building. And so the evening and the morning. But I looked at it and I called it the 6-day model. Because everything God made, it was made by the what? The opportunity to consider, you know, 6 steps in our discipleship of the full, and or at least get some sense of what we're trying to do as it relates to the 6-day model. Now, I'll be the first to admit that it's a work in process. It's a work in process, you know, because when you try to bring something and institutionalize something, you know, you got to go up against the institution that's in folks' head, you know, right? You know, yeah. So we looked at this, and so we looked at one of the notes that we took. That what this does, it shows us in the text. It said that God gave, which was gift, but He gave the gifts for something. He said for the equipping. God gave the gifts. I'm going to make it plain. I just want to run through it. They were equipping, but you equip believers for something, right? You know, you equip believers to be in ministry, but they in ministry for something. When you get time, it's right there in the text, you know, all that is for something, and that the body is built up for a reason, and people become for the unity of the faith, and then that also is for something. I'm going to walk you with me. Let me give you a better image. Here it is. I took that Detroit. He has an image, and so this is the result of that. So you see right here that again, gifts. You've been equipped for ministry. You ain't just been equipped just to be sitting around. Of what? And we get to a place. Here, gifts. You know, I'm changing that from responsible leadership. I want to change that to transformational leadership. So, you all right, little Zach? All right. To be pastors, some prophets, those are the gifts that He gave. And then here's that word right there. Y'all see it? For. Huh? Y'all see it? Yeah. It's a little old word right there. Everybody can read that word. For. Then the equipping. You see the equipping is what? Y'all see it? And there's 4 that they're edifying, and so they're edifying the body till we all come to, but it's for something, for the unity, right? And then of the knowledge, everything is always for something. Touch somebody, say, you for something. All right. All right. So the gifts are transformative leadership. The equipping is preparation. Ministry, again, that's the incarnation. And it's how do we make the love of God real in the world? How do you make God's love real in the world? That's in the body being. You said, that's right. You got to talk to me. Tell me, slow down. Because I'm trying to get for something. All right. But I can always get this either to Pastor, to Ethel, or where's that little smart Jessica over here? All these amazing people you all have here help get this ministry. And they can always run you back through it. The body being built, because I'm going to keep repeating it, so that's fine, but that's fine. Like I say, I'd rather get through than get finished. The body is built up, that's about being edified. Unity in the faith, that's about unification with fire. You know, any of y'all have been to the racetrack? It's okay. It's okay. I've been to the racetrack. I looked at the Triple Crown this year. I didn't bet anything on the horse, but I looked at it. But there's always in the race, in the horse race, there's always a horse in there. He ain't in there to win. He's in there to pace. Yeah, he's in to keep everybody at a certain pace, keep the horses at a certain pace. Now, if the pace horse wins, that means everybody's slow. Yeah. And all these horses, need to turn into dog food. Right? Yeah. What's my sister here? What's your name again? Yeah. Anita? Alita. She's our pacer. She's pacing us. All right. You got it? Okay. All right. So here it is again. Gifts, equip, minister, edify, prescribe. Yeah. You want to draw that too? Okay, that's fine. You pace. You pacing this thing. All right. Sierra, she don't need to write. She got it. Photostatic memory. Mm-hmm. The baby right there. Sierra. Mm. You got it? You pacing us. All right. That mean everybody got it. All right, so this is, hope my battery ain't went dead. Oh, there it is. So what the 6-day model tries to do, it's a process whereby the congregation can organize its life around the whole thing of perpetuating making disciple. And I use that creation narrative to provide this approach, and it's a disciple making process, which is biblical, which is practical, but also is measurable. And this is the question that Michelle is answering. How do you know where you are? You know, anybody ever go to, you went to school, she say, what grade you say you in? 9. Which means you just left the what? The 8th. And when you leave the 9th, you're going to go to the 10th, right? Then you're going to go. She knows where she's at. But when you come to church, you don't know where you are. A lot of times, you come to church, you don't know where you are because we don't have a curriculum in place that's biblical, practical, and measurable. Now, pastor may know where you are, but you don't know where you are. But you need to know that you're in the 9th, the 10th, 11th, 12th, gone, then you go to college, you're what? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, you graduate. Then you go on and on, right? But a lot of times we come to church, we don't know where we are. Huh? You know, that's why folk drop in and drop out whenever they want to, because it don't make no difference. Whenever I get here, that's where I am. But if you know you're in the 9th grade and you know that you some requirements that you have to fulfill to get to the 10th grade, huh? That can help you with your commitment level. Am I right about it? All right. So taking what I believe is God's greatest one is in Christ, he or she, behold, all things have become new. God's greatest creation is the disciple. All right? Let's walk through. So that was the goal, but the mission of, there's the goal, then there's the mission. So the mission of this model is to put the members of the Bethlehem Church in the best possible position for them to experience what was said in that text, everything that was good, especially the making of disciples or the equipping of the saints. That's biblical, right? Yeah, and the mission is grounded in that. So here's the curriculum. This day one. Day one, God said, let there be light, right? Amen. So that's the day of illumination. Let there be light. That's illumination. And that's new members orientation. Church in day 2. That way you know where you are. You in the new members orientation. That's day. Huh? Right. How many weeks is that? 6 weeks. 6. If you notice the cadence in the morning, the Bible says there be a firmament, and this, we got classes for that. The second you move from new members into experiencing God and real life discipleship. And here we're trying to answer the question, how does a disciple discern God's will? I think it's reproducible. I do believe it's reproducible. But this is the model we worked out. We ain't got all the kinks out of it, because I still got some folk at Bethlehem, they don't know what class day they in. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I got a good number of people who've been through all of this, day one, Then we move to day 3. Let the earth bring forth. That's what takes place in Genesis. So we move from illumination, now we into cultivation. We're cultivating people. And we have classes to help us in this process. And we use the Master Life series, which I think is a very good series. And the Master Life series is the Disciples' Cross, the Disciples' Victory, the Disciples' Personality, and the Disciples' Mission. Each of those are 13 weeks. See, I just want to believe that it's a big assumption that folk join if you're going to be a Christian, right? Right. Yeah, you shouldn't be serving to go through the 9th grade. And she may have a 10th grade mind. Thing. There's got to be some cultivation. What does it mean? What does it mean being a disciple? The disciple's cross. What does it mean, the victory? The disciple's personality. And so what we try to do is help people to discern the characteristics of a disciple's life in the world. It's a fascinating piece. This is a fascinating piece. You familiar with it? Yeah, the Master Life Series. It's fascinating. It's good stuff. Yeah, really good stuff. Good. So that's day 3. You're in the process of cultivation. Day 4 is some of y'all think that was illumination. The Old and New Testament might move people in deacons training or leadership training. You know, they don't need to jumping from new members class to being a deacon and you ain't, you know, skipping all these classes, you know. So we got teachers training, preachers training, you know, family life series, different things, you know, because what we try and do is help people get a sense of direction, and we try to answer the question about your responsibilities as a disciple in the church. All right? That's day 4. And the evening and the morning was the 4th day. Day 5 is discipleship multiplication. Huh? Be fruitful. That's what the Lord said. We got to multiply. But we don't start off multiplying. We get to the place where we multiply. We grow into a space of multiplication. And this is where we have our outreach. I heard Brother talking about some of us going out. We're going to engage in outreach. We got continuing education things. We have at our church, Loving the Word Crusade, Stewardship Revival, Healthy Church workshops. We used to have Pastor Coleman used to come in and teach a lot of stuff for us. Healthy Church, you know, the Ethel Brown music ministry workshop. What's some of the other stuff? Some of the stuff you be leading, Glenda. What's all that type of things? You know, to get people to the place where they can be fruitful. Is that making any sense, y'all? Yeah. Huh? And this has to do with the overflow of your life. Now, you know, you got a sense of direction, you know. So there needs to be some overflow. Come to a place of overflow. And how does that show up in your life? And so we try to help people to get to that place. You know, the fruit of the Spirit. All right, then day 6, be fruitful, multiply, and then say, and fill the earth. There's twice God says be fruitful. One, he speaks in general. Then on day 6, he speaks specifically to the human creation. He says, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. So this has to do with recreation. You know, and this is ministry where we engage in congregational edification plus community, where then they literally have become, going back to, and they are gifts to do what? To equip. Michelle, who would operate, people who get here are people who tend to be, I want to give you, did you get that? Okay. I got it. If you know, without form and vote, the model is we just going to have chaos. We're just going to have emptiness. We're going to have people unfulfilled. We try to skip all the way down to day 7. And that's what I think a lot of our churches are right now. It's very pretentious. We got pretentious privilege, you know, pretentious assumptions of godly privilege. You know, they don't want to go to no, ain't been through nothing. Now you don't praise the Lord. You know, I got church. Have chaos and then all the way to day 7. And we got a whole lot of day 7 Christians. How y'all like that little model?
Amen.
Y'all can give me a little give me my props. This is some next level stuff. Where's my oh, I'm sorry. Oh, get it. I bought this from some guy, and he didn't frame it like this, but he was saying it. I was in Virginia at the Trinity Baptist Church, and I heard a guy, you know, I don't mind borrowing stuff. My late doctoral professor, Dr. Samuel Proctor, used to say this. He said, anybody can be original if they ignorant enough. You know, you got to borrow some stuff from some folk, you know, and then, you know, tweak it and make it yours. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the alternative, which I call next level discipleship. And that's about this when we get to the prophetic stage of ministry. And that's turning the world upside down. And let's read that together. It's in the Bible, y'all. But when they did not find them, they dragged, crying out, these who have turned is to love God, love your neighbor, and love your. I'm going too fast. I'm sorry. This is some next level stuff here, y'all. I don't have the world through the lenses of the great commandment. God, love your neighbor, you know. And these are things that do not reflect a genuine love for God and the neighbor. The word observe literally means to. And this, we attend to things carefully in the areas where the love of God and the love of neighbor are being challenged by inequities. Then in humanity, the people are being deprived from their mama. Right. Be going on if Jeffrey Bogart said they wanted to uphold six. That's what never be fooled the empire. And there were some boys in the hood. Yeah, they're just some little old dudes hanging out, fishing. Jesus said, come on. They started a movement in the exchange goods and services together. These are the primary spaces and places where we're going to run into issues of inequity, injustice, and inhumanity. Anybody who thinks it's always about money, glorify God, power God's people, transform God's world. That's all I got.